Live. Okay, I was waiting. Here we are once again. We are back. Thank you for joining us on TRP Live, a program created by the Reclamation Project, the folks who believe in no soul left behind. It was started to, showcase amazing stories that edify the Christian journey and to have candid discussions on real issues that impact people, like today. So I'm your host for the night, Stan Mackey. Tonight's topic is, I gotta look at what the exact title was again. I have forgotten. I know what it's about. It's about change in the church in this COVID era, but post-COVID. How is the church going to adapt? How is it going to make adjustments to accommodate the new normal to come, whatever that is? It really hasn't been established yet. We know that this is somewhat temporary, or it could be permanent. At any rate, we are going to talk about how the church needs to make some adjustments, and as we often have our usual suspects. Come on, my brothers, Terrence, Chris, my brothers, how y'all doing tonight?
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm glad to be in the land of the living and actually know it.
Come on. It's not just enough to be in the land of the living, but you need to actually know it, because if you don't know it, then that means that something in the mind isn't working right. And well, I don't know. Is that really living? If you don't know that you are.
That's right.
We ain't gonna get too deep. That's not the topic for the night. But so my brothers, man, welcome. As usual, we're back. So we're talking about some stuff, man. We're just gonna go straight unscripted tonight, and let's talk about this the post-COVID world and how that pertains to the church. I know that I've shared with you guys at some point that once this is all done, what is the church going to do? We are going to be approaching a year. What are we? We're in November, December, January, February, March. We are 4 months away from the year mark. Excuse me. And over the course of this almost 1 year period, where people have been virtually locked down for the vast majority of that, I think the majority of that, people have stayed relatively at home. They've developed new habits. People have new habits now. They have formed a new way of life since shelter in place, since the pandemic, since COVID. And so, people have had a chance to reflect. Since most of us are spending so much time at home, we've had a chance to reflect on what's important to us, what's important in life. And can you get thank you, just come on in and grab him, man. I'm sorry, I got the dog came in, busted in on me. So, people have had a chance to reflect on what's important, and people have gotten out of the habit of doing things that are good, and have gotten in the habit of doing things that are not so good. So you can tell already that I'm already making an assertion. There's an implication here in my talk, and that is that the church is going to have a new role of sort when we're able to return. So I'm just going to open up the floor, and let's talk about that. Give me your thoughts. What are your thoughts on this? How is the church going to need to be different when we come back?
Well, I believe it's not going to be too much change because brick and mortar was what people were accustomed to. Now they have to grab hold to the cyber, the website, the internet. If you weren't loving with brick and mortar, you're not going to be loving on the internet. Not much is going to change. If you had a hard heart before and you haven't changed through COVID, you're still going to have a hard heart. I like what Jesus was said to his disciples. He was forewarning them and giving them some insight before he went back to his father. So he had the foot washing. From the foot washing, he went to Calvary. From Calvary, he went to the grave. From the grave, he went and sent it to his father to get approval. See, the cave represents the brick and mortar. So look what
Mm-hmm.
Jesus did after he ascended to heaven and he had about 30 days on earth and he began to quickly minister and show the disciples what they needed to know. And so let me give you a verse, John 16:33. That's John
Mm-hmm.
16:33. And it says this, these things I have spoken unto you that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulations, but here's the part I like. But be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. All the leaders, if you are in Christ and you've had this time to get your leadership skills up, one, two, get a relationship with your congregants, become a better preacher, teacher, leader, husband, uh, father, then and only then you will have a successful transition from the brick and mortar to cyberspace. But if your relationship is still sour, it's going to remain sour. So the Bible says, whatever is good report, guess what I want you to do? Think on these things. I pass the baton.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see where you're going with that. Come on, Terrence. What's your
You know,
take?
I was sitting there and I was listening to Dr. Dent, and I was reminded of what is it, Proverbs 27:17. Um, iron sharpens iron as a man sharpens the
Mm-hmm.
countenance of his friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that to say that, I think I'm in a very unique situation where I have people around me, even if it's virtually, such as yourself, such as Dr. Dent, friend of mine, Mike Jones, Lloyd
Mm-hmm.
Shan, and whatnot, that I can bounce things off of and just continue to grow in the absence of being in a physical church. But everyone isn't afforded that luxury. But here's the thing with that. I believe, and this is just my position, that you have to have a hunger for that. That has to be your own individual intentional desire. And so, whether or not the church doors were open, you were still going to have to assert yourself
Mm-hmm.
to that type of intentionality in terms of your relationship with Christ. And so, now you have a situation where, the enemy has some people on the ropes because now, as you were relating to, Stan, that people are falling into some bad habits. Why have they fallen into these bad habits? Because their routine has been broken. You know,
Mm-hmm.
not enough to just show up, you know, once a week every Sabbath, or if you're first day Christian every Sunday, right? It's not enough to do that, or to Wednesday night prayer meeting. It's not enough to do that. You have to have a sincere level of intentionality about this thing. As we've all been told, you're not going to make it into the kingdom based on grandma's faith or based on
Mm-hmm.
mama's faith or daddy's faith, right? It has to be your own individual relationship with him. And
That's right.
so if you find yourself in, pretty much a compromising situation, I don't mean to be rude or cruel, but you allowed yourself to get into that situation because you weren't being as apprehensive about your relationship with God as you should have. And so now, for me, this COVID thing, the pandemic has really allowed me to reflect even more. I mean, every single thing that I do, every situation I find myself in, I find myself talking to him about it. I was just up in the hills today. You know, I drive those big trucks, and I'm on a 1-lane road, and I shot a little video after I talked to God. Like, man, look at what God pulled me through. There's no barriers, any slight to the left, any slight to the right, and I'm going overboard, right?
Mm,
And this is
mm.
this is how we gotta be with God. Like, he has to be involved in every aspect of our lives, and I think a lot of us have lied to ourselves and allowed ourselves to believe that, he doesn't care about that, or, those things are so minute, they don't really matter, but they do. If you're alive and you're breathing at the time, it matters. You know what I mean? Because the enemy is nonstop, he's constantly coming. And so people have to get out of that blase type of mindset, right? And get back to basics in terms of, being intentional with God, not pass the baton.
Man, you hit a lot of points. The one that sticks out to me the most is the one that says that people's routines have been broken, and the implication is that if you didn't have a relationship with God before COVID, I don't know, unless you have some sort of tragedy or something, because we know tragedies put people in a reflective mode and have people searching for God. Unless that's the case, having your routine broken, going to church week in and week in and week out, without a relationship, an actual relationship, I don't know. I say that by the time COVID is over and people can go back to church, those folks aren't going. They aren't going. Now, let me remind you that when we had a discussion at the start of the summer, and we were talking about, we were discussing the movement, Black Lives Matter at the time, or Jesus on social justice, and I presented some data that was fresh at the time, and that data was showing, based on a research survey, that devotion to God was diminishing, and that it had over the past or the previous months since lockdown. And so we're talking like within the first 3 or 4 months, in that short period of time, devotion to God, in other words, people's propensity to read the Bible at the same rate that they were before COVID, people's prayer life, people's desire to be engaged and involved in church things dropped 4 months. Okay, now we're 8 months in. We didn't doubled it. Now, you think it's gotten better or worse? It's gotten worse. That if they were to conduct another survey now, I'm certain that it would show that the numbers have dropped even more. So COVID has changed the landscape for what we now refer to, what we think of, what we perceive to be church, doing church. And so that's why I say, I don't know if I said it directly, but in my opening statement, that when we return, that the church is going to have a responsibility, or the church is going to have to do something different. It can't be the same, because if all you do is return the way you operate, the way you approach members of the church, the way you did before, after almost a year, when people can change their habits and change the way that they operate, change the way that they think, who's going to be there? Who's staying? Except for, now we're the exceptions. I'm about to pass the baton. We're the exceptions. We have a solid relationship with God. Fundamentally, we're sound. We understand. We get it. Okay, so we're the exception. We're not the rule. We're talking about the rule now. These folks I don't know. I don't think they're going to last if the church just does what it did before. Let me pass there.
Yeah. Well, see, there are some assumptions within the assumptions. So there's a lot of assumptions that's going on here. So one is we're assuming the type of relationship that people have holistically, and now we have to determine whether was it a positive or negative one. If you were inactive in church, meaning taking care of the church's affairs, you were an active member, you have a better chance than a person that was inactive. They came by force. What does that mean? That means you're living with someone and you're a minor and you were forced to go to church. Now it's been a year, you're a little older, getting ready to graduate, you're leaving high school, you can make some more independent choices. Guess what? You're going to stay in the bed. That's why through this COVID-19, a lot of people have put on more weight because there's less movement.
Mhm.
More people are settled and comfortable in their bed. The remote control is in their hands. A lot of people is getting carpal tunnel. Their thumbs hurt. Why? Because they're just hitting that remote control. When they get up, they have to get up to go to the bathroom and come back to the bed. They look at each other and say, "Man, honey, you put on some weight." "Yeah, you too." "All right. Can you order some food? Because I'm not cooking. I don't want to leave this comfort zone." So it's a lot that goes on, and there's a lot of assumptions. But here's the key: if you had a good relationship, and I heard what you said, Stan, and it's a good point, but it's still an assumption. Where even when the disciples were with Christ, they didn't even know him. So the disciples probably said, "Hey, man, we got it going on. We're set because we are locked with the master." But unbeknownst to us, Judas was hanging around with them, but he had ulterior motives, so he wasn't really connected with the disciples. But he had a role that he played while being a part of the church. God said, "When I built this church, I'm gonna build it on this rock."
Mm-hmm.
And this solid rock, you have to be connected to the rock, not brick and mortar, not the location, but it's the relationship with God. One, two, relationship with each other, and then have a relationship with yourself. When all that grows, and we start coming back to church, then the church can grow. Pastors, if you're out there, please take advantage of this time to get to know your members. You have no excuse. Call them. Start with A's and go to the Z's. Just say, I'm Pastor so and so, and I just want to reach out to you. How are you feeling? I'm just calling to pray for you. You know, when we finally come back to brick and mortar, they will say, "Oh, I know my pastor. I have a relationship with him. I didn't have it before because I really wasn't engaged in church." So we have to really take the time now and get to know God better, and then you have a better relationship when you go back to church.
Excellent point. Let me eliminate the assumption real quick before you go, Terrence, because I should have clarified this. So this research study that was conducted that I shared the data with at the start of the summer, that took care of everybody. So there were no assumptions in that. It covered people who were highly devoted. It covered people who were somewhat devoted.
Okay.
And it covered people who scientific evidence. Yeah, that.
It's a fact.
COVID has caused a lapse or a diminishing of devotion. But I do agree with you in saying that those who have their prayer life, that they will likely, let's get you, they'll be stronger. They'll come out stronger, whereas others, the trend will be could be to lower. And I most certainly agree with you that, man, this is like opportune time for ministers. Hey, it's not like you got somewhere to be. You can't go anywhere. You got to stay at home. So you may as well get on the phone and talk to your members, get to know them, because at the end of the day, I don't know why more people don't know this. It is the relationship. It's the relationship. We're always stressing the relationship with God, telling people that they need to have a relationship with God. The same principle holds true for us too.
Mm-hmm.
In order for us to be effective, in order for us to have communion with other humans, we need to have a relationship. And what does it take to develop their relationship? Putting in time. So I agree with you. But now that I just want to share that or emphasize the fact that data showed that was an elimination of the assumption. And so, I guess I'm just trying to see, and maybe you guys will say that, Stan, I think we'll be good. I don't think the church really needs to do anything different. So, I'll respect that if that's what if that's you guys take. Terrence, go ahead and jump in.
I found Dr. Dent's recent comments to be really interesting and a great segue into what I'm about to say next, which is it's funny because just prior to coming on with you all, I was watching something. This minister was speaking, and he was talking about, the political situation right now in the nation. But what the statement that he made is very relative to what we're talking about right now. What he said was this. He said that we need to rise above our emotions and get connected with the thinking of God. And I really sat there and I pondered that one right there, right? Because here again, we're talking about, the church during COVID and the church post COVID. If you're not intentional about just rising above your emotions, your comfort level, or, when church say they open the doors tomorrow and say, hey, you guys can come back in, you can, worship together, whatnot, what have you. And you're just looking for things to go back to basics, and you're not really going because you're interested in drawing nearer to him. You're not really going because you're interested in having a greater understanding of the thinking of God overall and the thinking of God on your individual life. That's highly problematic. And so it takes a turn into what Dr. Dent was speaking to in terms of, you get comfortable with that remote and you don't want to go outside. Well, all of those things are only possible because you're not really interested in anything higher than yourself. And I'm not pointing a finger at any one individual. I mean, I don't have a heaven or hell to place anyone in. I'm trying to make sure that my soul is saved, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, that's where our mindset should be. And it's funny that we call ourselves Christians and we read this Bible, this great book, but we seem to be bewildered by the fact that the same things were going on in times of antiquity. There were plagues back in the day, right? There were different things going on. And so, the people of God, the people of faith, they didn't just sit back and say, well, we're just going to sit in the house and play cards. No, they
Mm-hmm.
situation and said, you know what? This is cause to pray. This is cause to draw nearer unto him, right?
Right.
Not cause to just sit at the table like a glutton and just continue to eat profusely, right? And put on all these pounds and just sit around and let your house fall by the wayside. It's not time for that. But it is time to draw nearer unto him. And so these are the little jewels and nuggets that we can find from what the Bible teaches us as our history, our human history, right? And so this is the position that I'm taking when I look at the question that you're posing in terms of the church moving forward and even what we're doing right now. Me myself, I just feel like salvation is so important to me that I can't sit back and just waste time. I can't allow life to just happen to me, right? I have to do something of myself, right? And until I get to the point where I can't do anything else, and then that's where God comes in, he steps in, he says, okay, Terrence, I'll take it from here. But, it's a two-pronged approach, and God is definitely going to help those that try to help themselves. But you got to consult with him, and you got to be intentional, and I pass the baton.
That's the hardest thing to do. That's one of the hardest words as humans able to grasp, and that's the word change. To change, the next word I want to introduce is habit. Experts say for you to get rid of a habit, it takes 30 days or 31 days, some experts say. So what happens? I have a bad habit. In order for me to get rid of that bad habit, it must be replaced by a good habit, or
Right.
that bad habit will come back and sometime come relentlessly holding you hostage, and it will almost take your life. For example, the drug addict. Man, I'm not smoking no more. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Praise his name. I'm in church. Monday, I lost my job. Back on the pipe. Got,
Hmm.
car accident, lost my life. Everyone's crying over me. And they said, but he just had testified last week that he gave up smoking, but he didn't go through the process. So Stan talked about earlier, timeline. In March, it will be a total year. Now
Mm-hmm.
watch this. This is I'm gonna ask you some general questions you don't have to answer. But how many of you actually reached out to people?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How many actually reached out to family and say, how you doing? How many reached out when COVID first hit? When you actually walked into the grocery stores and it was bare. And
Hmm.
lucky because of your diet, most people don't eat your food with a certain diet, and that was left on the shelves. And you're like, praise be to God. I have some food. No, nobody else wanted it.
Hey, the vegans was definitely doing that. I know I was.
Yeah, the stuff that was left is because they don't eat it. We do. So
Hmm.
all the vegetables and all that stuff was plenty. And we were just grinning about praise God. No. And so and some people changed their eating habits.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the good thing. Those of us who had good credit are benefiting from COVID. Why? Because we're not leaving home. What are we doing? We are actually ordering our food. Huh? Come on now. So I hear what you're saying, man. This thing is deep. And let me just go a little deeper if you allow me to.
Come on.
This thing is so deep that it causes people not to actually look deeply into their spirit. Because if you're serious with yourself, you have to say, man, I've since March of 2019, man, without going to church, my routine being changed, I have fallen. A lot of people have to admit, everyone at least have to admit that your spiritual life has diminished somewhat. Everyone has to say that. Their relationship with their family, because you're seeing your kids every day now, not a portion of the day, but the whole entire day. And they do get on our nerves sometimes. That's just a fact. Your
Hmm.
wife working remotely, and you're like, excuse me, honey, I'm on duty now. And you're like, no, you're not. You're right. I'm working. Hello, can you keep the noise down? That's every day. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you know emotions you get to grinding a little bit. You get to uh, rough edges and little tension flies. And then at the end of the day, you go, okay, honey, let me ask you a question now that you try to ask me at 8:30 when I was working. And you say, oh, I forgot. So, and listen, you're used to going to church on Wednesday or Tuesday night. You don't no longer go. So you're saving gas on one end, but the other end, your spiritual life suffers. We all have suffered. I have suffered immensely, but I've taken the bull by the horns and say, honey, in spite of that, we are going to do devotion before we leave the house. I've missed a couple of days, but thanks be to God, we have a God that knows all, hears all, and he wants us to be saved. That's the good thing about it. So I'll pass the baton on that.
I like that. I like that. Good points. Hey, shout out to my sister Sharon in the AZ. Good to see you, girl. So, I always got to make sure we address the needs of individuals who aren't on the level that we're on. And so I just want to circle back to that. So it's much easier for us to say what's going to happen or what should happen with individuals in their prayer life. So now, what about the folks who were just getting in, the newbies, the babies, the infants in the Word? Um, you know, um, there are, we talk about often how when you're new, when you just get baptized and just learning about God, that you need to be nurtured, you need to be treated as though you were an infant, you need to be spoon fed, you need to be taken care of, you need to be nurtured until you grow to the point where you're able to function, feed yourself, and that sort of thing. So let's think about them in this situation. Those who are in that position when they come into the church, and then COVID takes place. and now they are trying to struggle through this. So, and indeed they are struggling. Again, the data shows that devotion is dropping. For some of them, we're gonna lose them, at least for the time being. And it won't be until we return to when we just have complete freedom or liberty to move about. I'm reminded of Southwest Airlines, move about the cap. You're free to move about the cabin.
From the
Once
captain.
we're able to the cabin. Once we're able to do that, how is the church? Is the church going to remain? See, this is my whole thing. If all we do is expect for people to do what they did before, that's that's an expectation that we should not have. That's because we've changed our habits. Terrence already pointed out so eloquently that people's routines have been broken since March of this year, and they're no longer in the routine of going to church every week. Once, if we were to get our freedom next week, how many people would actually get up? I think you actually said this, Chris. How many people would actually get up, get in their car, and come to church next week? Forget about the skepticism, because once we get the green light to go, there are going to be some people going to say, "No, I ain't ready to go. I'm gonna let the first 10 million people go first and see if they gonna catch something, and then I'll come later." So we still got those people that are going to do that. But the ones who aren't concerned about that, how can we expect for them to just immediately get back into the routine if they're infants? I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't know. Maybe you guys can say something that that can help me see the light. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something.
Stan,
Well,
I would like to start by saying it's not just the newbies, because you do have some folks that have spent a lifetime in, for lack of better terms, a hostile environment in terms of churching, right? But at the same time, with either group, the onus has been upon us, and I mean people like yourself and Dr. Dent and myself. The onus has been upon us to, regardless of how busy our schedule is, as you alluded to earlier, to have reached out to folks and just send an encouraging word. I know there's a young lady that, incidentally, she reached out to me. It was early in the morning, like 5 in the morning. She was going through something. Hadn't heard from her in a while, right? But we talked through that and prayed through that. And so since that time, I've said, man, I got to make sure that, I drop some type of little nugget on her to keep her encouraged on a daily basis. And so I had missed one day, and she was glad to remind me, hey, listen, I didn't hear anything from you today, right? And so it's just little things like that that we can do to just help encourage people to keep on keeping on and keep hope alive, Jesse Jackson, keep hope alive for themselves, right? And, again, as I started at the top of the hour, iron sharpens iron. And so we really have to take that on. We can't get to the point of not recognizing that we're not here for self. That's the problem. We got to get self out the way. You have to allow self to get out the way, because if you keep talking about I, that's a problem. And that's why people are falling by the wayside in these abundant numbers, because we're so thoughtful of ourselves and not, thinking about other people and how they're doing. Had someone reach out to me just in the recent week, just to check in, just to see how I was doing, and I don't like to look at myself as leadership, but, Stan, as you and I talk, Dr. Dent, we talk, we are leadership here.
You're a leader, man.
So it's encouraging that people take the time out of their day to say, you know what? Leadership needs prayer too. Leadership needs love too. And so that's the mantra that we need to rediscover is what I say. And so, we're all responsible for one another. So the question is, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I should.
Yeah.
And I pass the time.
But do I keep
Just real
my
quick,
brother?
Real quick, I was just gonna say, go ahead. Real quick, Chris, I was just gonna say that this is encouraging. I appreciate let's get that comment back up. my sister saying that she's actually gained a better relationship during
Mm.
quarantine. See, now that's the kind of testimony that I needed to hear, and I'm certain some others needed to hear too. That actually being confined and forced to just, you stop people from being on the move. For some people, it's about slowing them down because they got so many things they're doing.
True.
They got somewhere to be. And they got time for God at the time. Now they locked down, can't go anywhere. Now I'm not saying sis that was you, but that's just an awesome testimony. Chris, go ahead, jump in, man.
Man, I heard your question, I heard your statement and your comment, and I would like to just add to that. There's absolutely positively no way that the church would be the same. Absolutely, and I don't care what anyone says, the church will not be the same. It cannot be the same because you're not operating in the same way. Why? Social distancing will always keep us apart from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we come back in our head, we're like, when somebody sneezes in church, they'll be like, oh, COVID-19. Deacons, get him out. Deacons, get him out. Get him out. You and your whole family that row. And then watch this now. I'm going to give you a simple concept. A lot of reasons why the church is not open now because we don't have enough leaders or workers to clean the church, to keep it sanitized. That's just one simple little movement. Now watch this. We look at two generations. Let's look at the baby. Let's look at our seasoned veterans who don't know how to work the internet, and they only can talk to Jesus through their prayers. And then we have that young generation that you just talked about. They're on fire. So that's the part I want to throw that out. Just because we're in COVID and you're a new believer, that doesn't really stifle you as much. Yes, it does go down for a degree, but if you're on fire, you're on fire. Maybe the fire has come down somewhat, but you're still excited about God. You're still passing out tracts and you're still seeing people, and you're doing it in the way that you are honoring and respecting social distancing. So it would never, ever be the same. And I don't care what no one says, you cannot duplicate it because for almost a year, we won't go back until after some part in 2021 or 22. And this has affected everyone. So if I see anybody sneeze, cough, I'm running the other way because we see the results of COVID and it's a killer. It's not I got a sneezy nose, no problem. No. So choirs, we're going to be singing apart 6 feet. It's going to be 6 feet. 6 feet may go to 8 feet. And so what happens is we're already distanced from each other before COVID. Come on, let's be real. Oh, hi, keep it distant. Don't hug me. We hug only certain people. Everybody's in our little circle. We only hug those who are in the circle. Come on. Come on, let's be real. Pastors, they say hi from a distance. But the ones that give money and the food and feed them and give them a little extra stuff inside, they shake their head and grin at them. Oh, we gonna be real. We gotta be real. Pastors, reach out to us. We can teach y'all. We can teach y'all something. And why, pastors, please take your head, get from out the sand, lift your head up, go to the directory and call your members. There's no excuse. That's laziness. And God didn't call you to be COVID-19 laziness. You were lazy before. Now you can't use COVID as laziness. So pick up the phone, pay your cell phone bill, and call your members.
Here, let's look at a few comments that came in. So I appreciate that, sister. She said that yes. So my sister said she was definitely one of the ones who was always on the move, and COVID slowed her down. Bless his name. COVID slowed her down. Let's come back to what Lana had to say, and I agree with her. If there's one thing that COVID has done, it has taught many and served as a reminder and emphasis to others who already knew that the church really wasn't the building, but that it was the people. And now that we've had the function and learned how to worship God and get our praise on without actually being in between four new walls, that's actually a good thing. Appreciate that, Sister Vonda. Let's see. Yes, individually, our lives have changed. Yeah, no doubt. Everyone just triggered. New routine, new habits, both bad and good. Hopefully more good than bad. And they're weaker and some are stronger. No, you're absolutely right. And so that was my concern, Sister Vonda, was that the ones who were weaker, that we're going to have to do a little bit extra. We in leadership are going to have to do a little bit extra to help get them on, because they've had now what is almost a year to develop new bad habits, change their whole routine. Doc Chris emphasized that laziness. We've all gotten lazy. Even me, as slim as I am, I have put on some pounds. I can't believe it. Come on now.
That's a COVID weight.
I have been the same weight for, okay, I ain't gonna give all my
since
age,
Hector was a pup.
But deep but deep into my 40s. And then these last this month, I promise you, I have regularly hung on to about 5 extra pounds. I'm like, what is going on? It's real. Now it's real. Now COVID is real to me because I put on 5 pounds. But this is what was I gonna say? I kind of lost my thought. Transparency. The realness. You talked about that. I want to kind of highlight that. So when we come back, see, my whole thing is I've been thinking that church has got to step up at least 2 notches on the realness scale. This whole playing church and putting on airs and wearing facades, being plastic and, vegetarian, man, and spirituality. That's going to have to stop. People now, I've talked with a lot of people, and I feel the same way too. I don't have time for mess now. I've had my liberties taken away. I've had my life endangered. Not the unknown is in place. Things look like we're moving without a doubt towards the end of the world, and Jesus is coming soon, because we can see what appears to be more prophecies being fulfilled. I don't have time to play. I don't want to come back to playing church any longer. So I think the level of realness has got to step up. What do you guys say?
I totally agree with that. It's funny because you just said what I was just thinking as I sat here in terms of returning to church. We can't go back to church. I don't care what your denomination is. We can't come back to church and folks are, as you said, wearing these facades, this holier than thou type of attitude. People are not going to be themselves if you're not being yourself, right? And so if there's not a level of transparency and you being candid and just honest about who you are, with both strengths and faults, and not being judged about that, then that's going to be problematic moving forward. And that's one of the luxuries that I've enjoyed here at the TRP, and that I really seek to see other people be able to enjoy as well. And, not try to put us out there like some type of a product, but these are some of the flaws that I saw within the traditional church. That week after week you would come, and I'm from the world. I'm not gonna lie about that at all. The point is, you can tell a fake from a mile away. You're not in that life that you portray when you come in here on Sabbath every week. You're just not, right? So just be real. Whether you're a pastor, whether you're an elder, a deacon, an usher, or just a parishioner that sits on the pews, allow people to feel comfortable. And if we really are studying Christ, that's what we'll see. We'll see a man, 100% man, 100% God, all at the same time, that will call you out in terms of, go and sin no more. But at the same time, you're not judged because, your dress was too short, or you're not wearing a tie at the time and you were supposed to go up front. That has nothing to do with salvation. Absolutely nothing to do with salvation, right? I heard one pastor say it best. He said, we sit back and we have these meetings to discuss and vote on a set of keys that go to a cabinet that house nothing but some paper cups, while people are outside dying.
Majors and minors.
So we got to be 100% real about what really matters, and that's the lives of people everywhere, right? And them knowing Jesus Christ. has to first and foremost be our intended agenda, not, you know, what somebody is wearing at the time and whatnot, what have you. And so, yeah, there has to be a high level of transparency. And I pass the baton.
If you don't mind, I just want to take that baton and just walk slowly for a minute. You said a lot of things, Terrence, but is that teachable? Is that the things that you said? Is it teachable? Can people learn how to be real? Maybe we have to do a segment just on keeping it real or being real. I just want to share a little small testimony that happened to me 3 weeks ago. I had a friend that I met in the early 90s, and we became good friends. She loves to sing, and she had a beautiful voice. I just got word a few weeks ago that she was in hospice, and just
Mm.
before she went in hospice care, she put everything in order. Um, so I asked, can I come and see her? And I was
Mm-hmm.
speaking with her older sister. She said, "We'll put you on the schedule, Chris, to see her. She's not feeling too well." I said, "Okay, I just want to see her, say goodbye and just reminisce."
Mm-hmm.
And then I got word last week that she passed.
Mercy.
So and that kind of
Mm.
hurt me. But the relationship that we had, and I haven't talked to her in a few years.
Mm-hmm.
So the older sister called me, said, "Chris, she was putting things together, and she wants you to do all the music." Now
Mm.
she attends a church that has top notch musicians. I mean, they can play circles around me. But she specifically wrote my name down, said, "You are in charge of my music. And these are
Mm.
the songs that I want you to
Mm-hmm.
play, and you determine who does what." And that really blew me away. And I'm like, that's what we've been talking about, relationships. So I do her funeral
Mm.
on next week, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't mind taking off work, and I don't mind someone that's dying thought about me to know that I will be able to execute her request. And I said, wow, that's how God relates to us.
Mm.
Can he trust us enough to come back to brick and mortar and not think of the same, but better?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm.
think about the mundane things, but building relationships. So, how do we build relationships? How do I talk to someone that I don't like? How do we forgive? How do we forget? How do we love our wives better? How do we justify our behaviors? We can't. And that's one of the roots right there, justifying behavior. And you really can't do it. But we've been doing it from the top to the bottom, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to leave out the middle. So we all need prayer. So here's another thing I suggest everyone. After you finish praying for yourself, pray for someone else. Then
Mm.
after you finish praying for someone else, then pray for someone that you don't even know, and then pray for your family members. Most importantly, pray for your enemies, because the Bible admonishes us to do that.
Yes.
Do good to them that despitefully use you and say all manner of evil against you falsely. Falsely. This is my last thing. I'm gonna say something that may tickle
Come
you a
on.
little bit. Uh, I have a problem with the Jewish nation, and the problem that I have is that they had the light, they had everything, and then the Gentiles came, and God gave it to the Gentiles because the Jews did not accept Jesus, and they're still looking for the Messiah, and they were cursed. They're cursed people, but they don't look cursed. They look cursed. They look blessed because of they have high positions. And so they have to stop looking for the Jesus, and we have to let them know Jesus is come and gone, but he's coming back to take our children home. So we need to stop divisions. There's divisions in churches, the Jews, the Gentiles, the Protestants, the Roman Catholic Church. We're all God's children. And as you build the relationship with God, all that other stuff dissipates. Because what did Jesus say when he was on earth? Where did you see him go to church? And when did you see him go to church? And he was our example. I'll pass the baton on that one.
Mhm. I love the metaphor. I love the metaphor. I certainly hope everybody gets that and see that clearly. Far too long, too many of us have just been sitting comfortable, believing that because we're the chosen ones that we've got nothing else left to do but continue to perpetuate traditions and
That's right.
customs. And then that's the end of it. And then you got your pass on into heaven. Not realizing that they've missed out on the Savior.
Yeah,
and
come
that
on
you
now.
really are a cursed individual and the blessings been passed to others.
Now you preach it. Come on, I'm going to pass the offering. I'm about to pass the offering.
And that's not what I came to do. But you know what, man, that is just so powerful. You know what, realness, reflection. I just want to go through because there's just been some great comments coming in. Sister Vonda was just basically laying it out. What it's going to look like, you know, elders are the first at the door because they can't adapt to the technology. Yep, we can see that. Working folks last. Fear, laziness, yep, all those are going to be reasons why people are going to have to be rehabituated, I believe. Many, not everyone, into getting back in the church. Now, they're going to be individuals like my sister Sharon, and like some of the individuals that Lana was describing who took advantage of this time and drew closer to God. And so they're going to be ready to go back. You know, Sister Lana made it clear that she's enjoyed studying, worship, praying with people, all walks of life. Come on now, who want to have. Now, where are you seeing all these people? Where are you meeting these people? Obviously, you have somewhere where you go, you're congregating with them, you're assembling together and getting them. But that's just awesome to hear.
With no mask on.
With no mask on. Come on. Well, you got a screen. The screen is your mask.
Come on now.
Man, you had me rolling. You had me rolling, though, bro. You were so right. My wife and I, we've been talking about that. How some of the policies that are in place, some of the guidelines that are in place, we don't want to go away because we were germaphobes before COVID.
That's right.
That's what I always told people. I've never feared COVID because I was a germaphobe already. So I had a regimen that has carried me. All praises be to God. But we're talking about how we want some of them to stay in place. So when you mentioned that folks gonna be spread out in the choir, I don't know how that's gonna look or sound. But
it's no more choirs. It's just praise team. We don't do choirs anymore. It's just praise team.
Oh my goodness, my brother Paul. What'd you say? Sitting back in the dark ages. Oh yeah, Paul made a point about COVID has forced us to place resources or allowed us to place resources and force in areas that conventional church boards would have blocked. You're right. We got a lot more freedom. A lot of churches have a lot more freedoms now. Many do because of COVID to shift monies over to different places and allow those to flourish. Wow. What say you guys? What this is just, man.
You know, Stan.
Come on.
The question was posed by Dr. Dent. Can this be taught? And I'm a firm believer that actions reflect leadership.
Yes.
With that said, I also believe that from leadership levels, you know, from the top going down, that if we were to allow ourselves to be honest, to be transparent, to be candid, then eventually, obviously it wouldn't happen overnight, but eventually our members would be a lot less guarded. And on top of being a lot less guarded, they would go out and tell people, you know, this is a place, we're talking in, you know, post-COVID. This is a place that you can come to and not be judged, not feel judged. You know, and just be yourself and let your hair down, so to speak. And that's what you want, where folks feel comfortable coming to you with any level of conversation as a man or a woman of God, right? Obviously, there's some type of ethics that you have to have with that. You know, keep private things private. Somebody tell you something, you know, you're not out there, you know, gossiping or whatnot.
Please.
Even gossiping in prayer, you know, none of that. But that, you know, when someone tells you something, they tell you something in confidence and that you respect that. But again, I point out that, you know, all these things need to start at the leadership levels from the top going down, and allowed the church to be what God called the church to be. We say it all the time that the church is a hospital for sick people, but we act like we're one, the doctors, and two, we're immune to everything, that we don't get sick and there's nothing wrong with us.
And wonder why other folks are sick.
Exactly.
I got a quick one real quick. I'm sorry. This happened 2 weeks ago. You're not going to be able to comprehend it. You're not going to be able to understand it, but it just shows you. It shows you where we are. This happened 2 weeks ago. Here's a doctor. Did 16 years. Top of the class, graduated. She died 2 weeks ago, and this is how she died. She kept the same mask on. I know, I couldn't comprehend either. They put it on the news. This doctor died working with COVID patients, and she never changed her mask.
Wow.
Now, if you're going to die and you spend all that time in school and you're helping all these patients and you're telling them what to do to prevent COVID, wash your hands 30 seconds or more, warm water, soap and water, do this, touch this, and two major reasons why people are getting COVID is getting the gas and shopping carts, touching shopping carts. Use your gloves, wipe them off. This doctor died because I don't know why, but they said it's because she kept the same mask on. What will cause you, that educated, to not put a clean mask on, but use the same one? I passed baton just when you were talking, it hit me, but that's a form of godliness to be not denied the power thereof. And sometimes you can be so smart, you're so dumb, and that could actually cost your life. I passed baton. I'm sorry, you just triggered that story.
Yeah.
And it threw me for a loop. I had to listen to it again because my brain couldn't comprehend that much intellect and that much ignorance simultaneously. And you wouldn't listen to one say, hey, why don't you use a new mask? No, I got it.
Yeah, that might be true, but can't you wash it? I don't know. Something. Paul said that they're forced to reuse masks because of a shortage.
Ain't that sure if it cost me my life?
Yeah,
I take it home and wash it every night.
It's rough. I feel for her family, obviously, but you just expect a little bit more, from individuals who's supposed to be the authority on things. Terrence, final thought. We're down to our last few minutes. Give me your final thoughts. Chris, get yours.
I just think that we need to. I'm glad we're having this conversation now because it shows a level of proactiveness that we're even thinking about, what the church should and will look like in, 2021, 2022. God willing, we stay on this course and prepare as best we can. But the number one thing is to consult with God first, right? And not just, go off of human emotion or what we believe to be human intellect, but to consult with God first and come together as a body, right? Whether it's virtual or whatnot, but come together as a body, and really just lighten the load on one another, but get this thing done. I pass the baton.
I agree with my brother wholeheartedly that this ministry is looking forward. This ministry is not looking now, but it's looking in the present and looking in the future and saying, how would the church look? And what some things that we can do, develop some new skill sets that we can build a stronger, more vibrant relationship with God. And metaphorically speaking, if we don't, we could be like that doctor who set the course and took an oath to take care of people and save lives. Therefore, her life was saved because she was too blank. It could be you fill in the blank, too cheap or too whatever, but she lost her life. What could they say about her at her funeral? Being a great doctor, and now she's in the grave because she didn't change her mask. So take your mask off if you have one. Not the mask that covers your nose and mouth, but your mask that covers your face when you come into the church being fake and phony. Take it off, remove it, and let God put a mask on. Hallelujah. Praise his name. I'm going to pass it.
Well, just in case people didn't get the opening clause here, this is a discussion where we keep it real and it's candid, and this isn't your ordinary panel discussion. With that said, I'm just going to close by summarizing what we've discussed tonight. I think the major points are that will the church change, or will it have to make some adjustments? Yes. I know in the beginning we kind of talked about how there wasn't a whole lot needed to be changed, but I think towards the end, as we began to dig a little bit deeper, we realized that, you know, well, there are some things that we are going to have to make adjustments with. One, we're going to have to be more transparent. We're going to have to be real. We can't be fake and phony. You know, because, you know, again, individuals are sitting back and they're taking advantage of this time, or shall I say the time is taking advantage of them. You can't go anywhere. People don't have time to be playing now. When we come back and we finally can get back to some sort of normalcy, things cannot be exactly the same. You know, we've got to get rid of some of these, you know, if it isn't, if it's just tradition for tradition's sake and there's no value in it, you know, having to wear a tie, like my brother Terrence brought up, to be on the rostrum, to be on the stage. Come on now, we're done with that. Are you kidding me? Being so concerned about whether people are wearing a dress, women are wearing a dress versus pants. Come on now. Gotta let it go. Whether they're wearing earrings or not, you know, I don't wear them myself, but listen, I ain't got time for all that. Listen, let's just focus on the important stuff. So I believe that the church has a new calling of sort when we return to what will become a new normal. I know it's not gonna look exactly the way it did before, earlier this year in January, but whatever that is, we've got to come back serious now about our Father's business. And that's it. Let's save souls. Let's help people develop a relationship. Come on. And with that said, I just want to thank my brothers once again. Always good to have them back. And let's see how much. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome, Lana.
Yes.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you guys for joining, for tuning in, staying with us this hour on a Friday night. We know you could have been 100 other places, but
in my bed
maybe
with
you,
my wife.
Yeah, right. Maybe not 100 other places because you can't actually get out and go
there
anywhere.
You go.
But,
that's why I said one place.
Yes, thank you, Ilana. You where are you want? I ain't concerned about none of that. Neither should anybody else.
As long as you don't stop you from coming to church and building that relationship with God, you can wear everything you want to wear.
You can wear. Come on now. Well, this is it for our broadcast tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. You know we're gonna have our little debrief after this. That's the show you guys really want to see, but we have to cut the live button off. But I just want to invite you guys all to return tomorrow. We've got a powerful speaker. We've got some good music, testimony. You know, we try to give you a variety. We try to feed everybody with nutrition, give you all the vitamins and minerals spiritually that you need. And they change. It's like a one-a-day Centrum vitamin. But anyway, all the depths of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable are his judgments and how unfathomable his ways. For from him and through him and to him are all things. To him be glory forever. Amen. Until next time, good night.